This is an Alliance podcast.
Welcome to a special episode of the For the Culture Podcast, soccer podcast for us, by us. Still talking about this intersection of Black culture and soccer, but we got some real shit to talk about tonight. And to join me, we got our girls up here from Shea Butter FC. Hold on, move fingers right. Sylvs, Skye, left to right. How y'all doing?
No days off apparently.
Yeah.
It's wild out here.
It definitely is. Want to give a quick shout out to TK. Real quick. He mentioned last week during the doing this 2 up and 2 down about the IATSE strike vote that was coming up. Looks like they voted to strike as of Monday. And hopefully all those crew workers on these Hollywood sets all around the country, y'all get your money right, get your chicken right, and get what you're for and everything. And hopefully that gets done sooner rather than later, because you're pretty much unless you got other side hustles, that's money coming out of your pocket for a little bit. So just want to make a quick note about that. And while we're on that note, because of course, we're talking, it's about unions. Man. So before I dig in too deep, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audio Boom, just make sure you subscribe, like us, and all that stuff. Let's get right up in here and dig right in, because obviously the topic that we want to get into this week is the NWSL scandals, because it's not just one, there's more, and there's so many. And if you listen to us for the past few weeks, we've kind of touched on it here and there. So I want to go into like a big deep dive here. Of course, if you haven't done so already, make sure that you have listened to Shea Butter this week, because like they got in this real quick over the weekend, and I want to rewind, but at the same time I want to kind of continue that conversation. So let's just say, like, how did we end up here? So let's rewind a bit. So like, actually, I want to go back to last year. So last year we had the story about Deloy Hansen, owner of the Utah Royals. He gets caught saying some racist shit. He gets called out on it. He gets put out. Utah Royals relocate to Kansas City. You would think it would stop there, but wait, there's more. Fast forward to the beginning of the season. You had incidents with Sarah Gordon. You had incidents with Chris Edmonds. You had, in the middle of the season, you had incident with Jessica McDonald, all basically tinged with race. And you're like, yeah, for a league that's supposed to be on the up and up, shit's looking real sideways. But wait, there's more. So, as we've spoken about on the podcast more recently, the story came out with Kaya McCullough, who was drafted by the Washington Spirit last year, and basically encountered a litany of racial abuse, verbal abuse, just abuse. The whole organization just being totally out of pocket. And then, because of course, there's still more. You had the article from The Athletic that came out this past Thursday, which is basically how we got to this point here, where finally they realized, oh shit, we actually have a problem here. Where the report came from former coach of the Portland Thorns, North Carolina Courage, Philadelphia Independence, Paul Riley. He engaged in a, I don't want to call it, would you really call it a relationship? It's just like, hey, he had access. He basically pushed his way into having sex with a player on his team, pretty much, because he had that type of mental pressure, coercion.
Coercion's a good word. I mean, I've heard rape. That's also fair because you can't really consent when you're coerced. But the players themselves, I think, have erred on like saying coercion, sexual coercion. So I'll stick with that. But yeah, it's manipulation in order to obtain whatever he wanted. And coaches automatically have power in any situation with a player.
Yep. And mine, like this, like that, those are just like the major stories that kind of got it, because you still got the situation with Gotham, with their GM getting fired over violating the anti-harassment policy. You had also another player with Sky Blue, now Gotham. They basically committed contract fraud, forging player signature to get them traded out to Portland. There's just so much here, and go ahead.
No, yeah, you have that. Speaking of formerly Sky Blue, now Gotham FC, Christy Holly was formerly the coach there, was hired by Racing Louisville and fired for cause a month ago. It seems like it was August, or I'm sorry, August or September. I can't even keep track. That's how much stuff you had. And that is right after Kaya. You see the rain scarf obviously on my door, but like even we hired a coach that had been known to be verbally abusive previously to an American player, by the way, Lindsey Horan, who's been very vocal about Fareed Ben Speedy the whole time, was still hired by OL Reign and then was let go right before they had an away game at Houston. And we found out this week from Molly, who also did Kaya McCullough's story, in the Washington Post, that in fact he had been verbally abusive and had essentially been under a zero tolerance policy. So he had berated the entire team, it seems, and then it was escalated up by the captains and he was let go immediately, but still was hired in the first place. So to even have that. And that's probably not the last of it, if we're going to be honest.
Nah, it's probably more stories coming. Prepare yourself.
Yeah. So clearly there's been a lot just in the last 20 months, 18 months. Like, it's been a lot. And we finally reached a point to where this past, was it Monday? Sunday or Monday, the commissioner of the NWSL, Lisa Baird, stepped down. The general counsel of the league.
That was by Friday.
Oh, yeah, Friday.
It was next day.
The general counsel, Lisa Levine, she stepped down because you basically had a culture of where you basically kicked the can as much as you could. And every time you had people raising the alarm saying, hey, there's a problem here. Can we address it? They're like, hey, thanks for the email. We'll get back to you. Nothing happens.
Yeah, be blessed.
We wish you well.
Get some edible arrangements.
Oh, Father.
And it really took, so major players really getting involved and coming through with the receipts like Alex Morgan that came through with the actual email sent to her name was Sinead Farelly. The email that was sent to her basically saying that this was like dated back in May. That we hear you. Well, we consider these matters to be done and dusted. And because you basically had the league trying to play it off as though, oh my God, we are stuck. We are stunned. We did
not know. This is new.
Gasp.
Well, Lisa Baird said that when the article hit by Meg Linehan in the Athletic on Thursday. In response, while she was still commissioner, she said that one of the first things she said in her statement was she was shocked and that she didn't know. And that is when Alex Morgan on her Twitter said, "Oh, you didn't know?" And
let it call
hit you with the 1/3 posted that joint on the Summer Jam screen for everybody to see. And keep in mind that is with Alex. And I'll give props to Alex Morgan, right? Like she's put her name on everything since 2015 in regards to this, right? But like even she in 2015 could get it escalated but couldn't get anything done. And in terms of the pecking order of the national team in 2015, Alex Morgan's at the top.
Right.
So it's so intrinsic and cultural that not even your names can get stuff done.
Yeah, so that's the clear thing that people need to understand. Like these national team players don't have no power. They got fame, but they ain't got no power.
But you know what? Because like I was thinking about this before we started recording, because what I have kind of processed through the past couple of days, trying to make sense of everything, because when it gets laid out to you in the abundance that it has, because like I think we listed about a good like 6 or 7 instances just a few minutes ago, and like I said, it's not just a case of like where it's an isolated incident. You basically have a pattern of fuckboy shit and saying like, hey, we'll like go away, be blessed, and you know, it's. I have a hard time just kind of just processing like how this league has managed to go this long and just be so completely dysfunctional. Oh, and mind you, like you're like I said, this is a league that as of the last World Cup, they were kind of had their doubts as far as like how much longer this would go, unless the U.S. women managed to win a World Cup. And then you take that momentum and said, hey, we got these new TV deals and we're about to come into some new money. We about to go get some rims on some dubs on the Escalade. Like we about to just, be riding good real quick. We'll be eating good real quick. And all the while you're allowing players to get abused and basically manipulated at will, because you have no CBA in place. You apparently you barely had much of anything resembling a code of conduct until last year.
Not even the harassment policy, anti-harassment policy got put in place, I think,
in the summer.
And that again took players having conversations, right? So I think there's a lot here, right? Like I think one, I know we had this conversation before we started recording, right? But the egos of people in charge, right? And the idea that I think if you ask most of those people, and this came out, right, because Lisa Baird just couldn't stop talking and put out a second statement after she had resigned, and essentially hit y'all with the color purple. Miss Millie, I've always been good to you people.
I've done so much for this
and
league.
I've done so much for this league in the 2 seconds that you've been here, by the way. But and mind you, Lisa Baird before this was also on the U.S. Olympic Committee, particularly during the time of
Larry Nassar.
Yeah, during the time of Larry Nassar, which Allie Raceman has been more than kind to point out. She wanted to make sure y'all knew. And Lisa Baird comes from money, right? Like she's a wealthy father, right? Like, so she doesn't know, she has no connection to any of her labor force. Even though a lot of the women that play or players that play in women's soccer in this country have some affluency to varying degrees. But I say that to say, right, like you're laying out a really good timeline of like, okay, we don't know if the league's going to survive. We have the women's national team, winning the 2019 World Cup and this momentum. Those people think it's because of them. It's not because of the players. It's not because of, the talent. It's not because of any of that. They assume that the unfair structure that they've set in place is why all of this is prospering. So why the hell would they change it? You know what I mean? Like, it's not.
Well.
Okay, you can. Okay.
Well, so here, this is my thought.
Okay.
So part of how you had the systematic, repetitive stuff, and this is where I want people to understand, this is not just stuck in the United States.
Oh,
in
no,
NWSL.
Yeah, because we can get that in a little bit later. Because there was just stuff that came out.
Yeah. There's stuff. So as the doors of the church have swung open, and we're having the whole testimony of all the bullshit that's been happening, you better believe your league probably has the same shit. And I tell you this because in all these stories where you had people say they put their names on something, you had several other people not put their names out there, because whether they play in the NWSL or they're playing somewhere else, it's the same culture all over the place, where because there's no legitimate structure to protect players, even if they got a CBA, you still have a mad power imbalance going on that, yeah, you can report it, but then your ass ain't playing nowhere else. And then you accidentally don't get a place to play.
And that's something that, given just the some of the internal strife, I guess you could say, that I've been privy to, it's definitely been made clear that I think just as a whole, the NWSL has been able to thrive off a system of abuse. I mean, I think you could say that for essentially the entire league. Like y'all said, whether you are a superstar player, you're a player on the women's national team that's getting paid, mind you, directly by U.S. Soccer for their player contract, or just if you're down there at the bottom of the roster, because a lot of these contracts are
32K, and that's including. Is that including the house?
And that's like if you have stuff. You have if you didn't read, there's an article Courtney had where, like, example, Jasmine Spencer, her first season only made $5,000.
Yep,
and she got hurt.
And it's funny because one of our past guests, Lauren Silver, she was on the show last year, and if you follow her on the socials, you'll see that there's really not a great deal of soccer shit on her stuff anymore. And she said she turned down a new contract that she was offered by Houston this past off season, and she's actually been making more than double what she was out here in the open market compared to what she would have if she just kept playing soccer. And it's like it's funny because we talk about the issues with MLS a lot, and how in a lot of cases there's a lot of players who can't cover the cost of living in all markets, but here in NWSL, you're basically talking about it's not Raleigh is an affordable market, but you still have Jessica McDonald, who's won a World Cup and still having to work 2 jobs.
Yeah,
who's allocated, right? For 2 years. So,
but it's a thing where I'm talking about. So, because people have this perception in soccer, and this comes back to white supremacy. So, because people have this perception soccer is not popular in the United States, people then in power can say, "Oh, it's not marketable, so there's no way to invest and whatever. So you got to take the cheaper salary. We got to do the allocation." That's part of how even U.S. Soccer uses stronghold, because they can sit here and say, "Hey, we gonna allocate. Well, we'll pay your national team players this contract," and they got coerced into. By the way, I don't call that a CBA. It's a fake A. Yeah. It's a fake agreement.
Yeah.
Fake FAA. And so then you have that happening. So then if they make that much, then you say you're not on a national team. You can say, well, if you make a third of the contract, that's cool, but we got to help keep the league afloat. It allows owners who can even afford it, they even can afford to pay them legitimate salaries.
Oh, yeah.
They can pay less than what they're valued because there's no CBA in place and nothing to make them have a minimal salary. And then it's all gets pushed back to where you're saying, well, you gotta go cheaper because it's not a popular sport and we can't get.
We're trying to survive. We're trying to keep the lights on.
Right, and you're able to hold that. Yeah, and you're able to hold that. So part of it too, in terms of reporting, though, again, players tried in the beginning of the league, right? And I think this is on all the players, but I think some of that is on the national team players, right? Like the idea that we have to help keep this league afloat because many of them were here at least when the last one folded, if not both folded, right? Like, so the idea that this is the third one and the pressure of like, if this don't work, there's no league.
Right. And
they've been able to hold that over their heads. And I mean that for all
Right.
players. Like they've been able to hold that over their heads. And I know Skye talks about this and talked about it on the pod. Like a lot of players lost their career when the last league folded because they had nowhere to
Right.
go.
All right.
And I think that's where we kind of find ourselves in a very precarious position, because considering all just the number of incidents that I think in any other scenario and environment, they'd be like, hey, we need to blow this league up. But because we're on this like League 3.
Third, this is a third. Yeah.
I think that people are concerning and trying to make sure that, this one doesn't fail, even though you have so many instances of where the league itself has failed the players. And you're able to abuse their livelihood. You're able to abuse, their love for the game, essentially, because you have people in place that are willingly just manipulating and say like, hey, if you don't do what I say, you could be benched. If you say something the wrong way, you can get traded. If you don't hang out with me on my yacht during the World Cup, you might see yourself shunned from training. Like it's shit like that in a normal, functional, professional sports environment, that shit would not be possible whatsoever. Absolutely not.
But it's like, but it's a recurrent thing in women's soccer. So let's flash back to the WSL, because last year it's crazy to me. People didn't get pissed off that in the WSL you had issues at Birmingham City, Arsenal, you had shit at Manchester United, in detail where Tobin Heath almost had to retire, and then you had a bunch of their players get hurt because Manchester freaking United was not investing in the women's facilities, and so that caused Casey Stoney to leave.
And Casey Stoney, when she did leave, she was threatening to leave before, right?
Before their last game, they needed to win to go to Champions League. And keep in mind, the concept that Arsenal and Manchester United literally were fighting for a Champions League spot because their clubs did not pay money and invest in them.
Not only that, but like you have, right, with all of Liverpool's success, they don't invest in their women anymore, right? Like that was a league-winning squad.
Right.
They wouldn't even let her train on the new training facility.
Even with Tottenham, Alex Moore got hurt, and she was like, "Y'all gotta fix." They were in the cow pasture. She was like, "Y'all gotta have better training for your women's team," and that transformed the team. No matter how many games she played, part of the light she got hurt playing on the cow pasture. Like the fact that even in the WSL, you have to you got I've never seen no shit like this where you got coaches like, we can't have you playing on the little cow pasture and the whatever the heck, because the players might get injured, or what's his name, Kirk, he'll make up shit like the wind was blowing so they can't play. But like other than that, you have like fields unusable, where it's like that would never happen in a Premier League game. You know what I'm saying?
No.
And we could go down the list in different leagues where this happens.
Right. It's like Germany, it's France, it's all of them. I say France is a little bit better, but yeah.
Well, PSG. All the people left PSG because they were like, they weren't investing in their women's team.
And we know PSG got money. They got Neymar, Mbappe, and Messi, and probably could go get another 3 players. Like that team, that's oil money, right? Like they got money all day.
But it's like when you don't value women as humans and you don't value women's sports, you get this perpetual bullshit. That's a cyclical.
Yeah, so it is worldwide, absolutely.
And that's the weird thing that, especially the dynamic with Europe is obviously different, but at the same time, you're talking about like the names that we know in European football. You have Chelsea, Juventus, PSG, Lyon, Man United, Arsenal. Like these teams aren't broke. Like you just like we could go into
Barcelona.
The Barcelona, dude. Like if y'all didn't watch Women's Champions League today, I'll tell you like this.
Woo, it was sexy, wasn't it? It was beautiful. Woo, Lord Jesus.
I don't even like Barcelona, but that is art.
You better enjoy Barcelona while you can, while they still got a little bit of money, because when that money's gone,
that's gone. It's bam.
They crossed to meet them. I was like, God,
that was beautiful, boy. That was like they was playing. It was like elementary school versus high school. No, it was like pro versus elementary. There was this taking balls.
It was Bishop. It was like Bishop. What was that football game with the fake school?
You didn't do that. Why are you doing
Bishop
that?
Yes.
You call Arsenal Bishop? Damn.
To be fair, all the WSL teams Barcelona played have looked like Bishop.
Yeah, they look like that. Yeah, your Chelsea got like that.
Oh, they whooped our ass. Oh, absolutely. 1,000%.
I mean, sometimes it's like that, but
sometimes you get your ass whooped. That's the way it works.
But yeah, like so. Of course, coming from everything that came out last week, the decision was made by both the players and the league, however they want to word that the games this past weekend were suspended. I guess that's the appropriate term, because I guess the idea. Well, at first it sounded real janky as hell, but then you realize that because there's no CBA, you realize that if this game doesn't happen, they don't get that game check, and that fucks up a lot of people's money. So, and they kind of had to suspend it instead of going out there and protesting like they probably wanted to. Like, so I'll work with that. I'll work with it, because like I said, you want to make sure these women are getting paid something, even though they should be getting paid a whole shit ton more. But hey,
I mean, you also didn't want them, arriving at the game and then not playing, and then a protest break out midfield. I mean, they didn't want that.
Because that's similar to what happened in the WNBA, right?
That was the part that I think that the league trying to avoid. I think they didn't. Yeah. They obviously didn't want that to happen, but at the same time, I said, like, if that happens, then the league can easily, because there's no CBA, the league could be like, oh, well, you didn't play the game, so let me just go and get that check back from you. We'll see you at training on Monday.
I don't know. I think it depends, because in theory, if you run around the field,
you played.
You played.
They didn't say the quality had to be good, because sometimes it's not. They just say you got to play. So once the whistle blows, you played. So I know, I feel like the WNBA did something similar in the bubble, maybe. I don't remember, but
they just didn't play. But of course, they have a CBA, so it's like they were protected. Just got theirs,
so
like you at least had an option with the WNBA, and that brings me to I think just the point that that's really been sitting on my mind all weekend, is that now that this weekend has passed, and obviously we still got a few more weeks of the regular season before we go to the playoffs.
Yeah.
How the fuck do they go back? Because we're talking about issues that one have not been fully resolved, because you still have you have an open protest right now with Portland supporters against pretty much the whole Portland soccer organization, whether it's Timbers or Thorns.
Yeah, right.
You had an open letter from the Washington Spirit players that led to Steve Baldwin stepping down as CEO and managing partner. Of course, mind you, the whole message this whole time has been sell the team, not just resign, sell. And then the players had to send out another statement I just saw on socials saying, we want Michelle King at running the shop. Because like, if you ever want to have a picture of white privilege in your dictionary, I need you to go Google search a picture of Bill Nelson and just understand that the sheer luck that he ran into, because he finally got let go at DC United. Was it 2019 last year? and he just so happens to just be walking through the park, on his lunch break, and he gets a call and says, "Hey, you want to come over here and work for Washington Spirit?" I was like, "Well, I'm not doing anything. Sure, why not?" And then he happens to be in place when all this shit happens to fall down, and now he's at the moment he's basically in charge of the club. Only in America can this happen.
Failing upward, boy, every day.
Well, yeah, that's true. Because I was gonna be like, well, Philadelphia,
failing upward.
America.
But he had a homie in place, so that's kind of different.
Yeah, it's still the good old boys network.
It's still the good old boy failing upwards.
The British edition.
The British edition.
Yeah. the good old chops.
Is he a Brit too?
Oh.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Or Scottish. Holly's Scottish,
yeah.
Right?
No, that was English. Like they all came together and Man United.
I thought Holly was either like North Ireland.
Oh, Holly. Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Holly's from over there. He's over there from somewhere.
He's from the UK. He's not British.
Is it a British
thing? He might be on a plane
like,
somewhere hiding, but yeah.
Is it a British thing? Because you had Paul Riley, you had Richie Burke,
it's a UK
Holly.
thing.
So not inherently, right? Like one, you have some good
I don't want to lay that label on all Brits. Like we got homies over there. It's all good.
But that was my point when the rest of the world was like, "Oh, look at them over there." I'm like, we certainly let them cook, but we didn't create the monster.
I mean, we've always had a bad habit of giving British coaches, quote unquote, that credit. He's got a British accent. He probably knows soccer, so let's go ahead and give him a job.
It's that part, right?
I was about to say her name.
Trust our own time. That's a different episode. We'll deal with that later. But yeah, I think it's that mentality that, again, because soccer culture here is so white, one, we defer, and when you say British, it's white British people because Hope Powell ain't got no job, right? So that's one. So that's one. And none of the black British men get jobs. Like, that's not who's coming over. It's white dudes, right? But two, you killing me, Skye. But two, it's this idea because soccer here is so white and affluent, and we don't allow access to people who don't have money, and particularly black and brown people. They have a very fixed idea of what being good at soccer is, right? And they defer to this British model, which is also white, not necessarily the players all the time, right? But everybody who runs something, because how many non-white coaches do you have in the Premier League?
Right, that's true.
And
then you turn around and get cooked. So then you think you can go run a certain lineup at Barcelona, and then you get cooked on up until you put the dynamic pieces into the game.
Well, and that's interesting, right? Because I think you have the Premier League right there, and so I think, and again, British soccer culture is incredibly different, and so, like, this isn't to talk about them; it's talk about American soccer culture. But like, again, because it's so white, you don't really have the concept, and you don't trust what's here, right? Like, we have the soccer culture, we have great soccer minds with great soccer IQs who can scheme and do tactics. Who players can trust, but they don't look or sound the way you want them to sound, or look and sound, right? So that eliminates a lot of people, and you keep going back to the same well. Part of why these toxic white men get cooked is because you don't teach nobody else how to coach, right? Like, you don't invest in that. Like, people just started getting licenses, and I know some of the players got in there. Like, that's how Bev Yanez is the assistant coach at Gotham now, along with Scott Parkinson. She doesn't quite have her license, but she's on that list. I know, like, Darian Jenkins is on there. I think there's a few other players of color, but like, that's the first time, and that just started last year. I think they started paying for players to do that, right? So, but you can't tell me there aren't more Hope Powells. Like, get the hell out of here. And she's doing it at Brighton, fam. Brighton.
I mean,
come on.
But you bring up a good point there. And sidebar, TK, how you feeling, man?
Yeah, what's up, TK?
You're on mute, man.
Always.
I'm well aware I'm on mute. I was like, that is a horrible segue to an introduction.
I know, but I just want to know the question. People that do see us on YouTube, I'm like, I know.
He did.
Greg did a Thanos snap for tonight's episode, so I am here.
But
Appreciate you, man. You know.
But yeah, like of course we talk damn near daily, and I know like some of the things that we talked about was just thinking that, you know, if Europe ever got their shit together, all these NWSL players would be gone. But of course you find out that it ain't much better over there either. So it's like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And like I feel like that's the thing I find most disheartening is that, you know, there's for as much with women's soccer that's been progressed in the past decade, it's still in large part is operated as an afterthought. It's like, you know, it's like, hey, if you're here, cool. If you're not, you know, sorry, whatever. You know, like it blew my mind. I think when you guys told me that when Kristen Preston told me Heath were at Man United last year, I think they were both clocking, you said like 600,000 for the year, and like everybody else.
So they were clocking. Well, it was like large. No. I think it was a lot of money. They were making.
Well, you have to combine the fact that they were getting allocation money because that was a weird rule.
Well, no. Well, I'll just say I can't reveal shit.
I will say officially they were making a couple 100,000. Unofficially,
they made a lot of money.
But I don't think it matters. They both make like 300K a year.
Well, it's not whatever. Yeah. They made a lot of money because they were there to actually mentor and stuff, all that too. Mm-hmm. But the issue is most of the players weren't making. They were making pennies,
right?
Comparatively, right? Yeah.
And they had shitty housing and all that crap.
But they also come with like a fan base and people who will spend money and all that.
Oh yeah, because Kristen Press, she was leading in jersey sales and all that, and
that's she getting paid right now. Yeah.
That too.
But you have a system that's not too much better over there than it is here, and
absolutely.
And it's like it honestly it makes me appreciate and honestly respect women's soccer even more because like I said, like for the amount like you're I think the comparison between men's soccer and women's soccer is probably the closest that you could have between counterpart sports than pretty much any other sport out there, because you're on the same size pitch, you're on the same size ball, you're
same amount of time, all of the same position, same everything,
and yet you're basically being told, you're not even third class citizens in most cases. You're homeless. You're homeless in most cases, and like because you're having the teams pay for your housing and all that stuff, or you have a host family and they're letting you stay there, or you're bunking like a minor league baseball player. Like it's stupid as shit, and even with all that, you're talking about like some of the best players in the world. And
let me point this out to you today, right? Okay. And I caveat, it was preseason. Mm-hmm. The team that has hung, and Lyon beat Barcelona in the ICC. So that's one, but that's Lyon. They're supposed to hang with Barcelona.
True.
The team that has actually given Barcelona the most fits is the Houston Dash. They are 7th in the table right now in the NWSL.
Right.
You saw Barcelona today.
Yeah.
And for the most part, those starters were similar. And so that's the talent I'm talking about. And Houston isn't the most stacked team.
Right.
It isn't.
They got a lot of good pieces, but
Houston should have won that game. But they Houston.
Yeah, they missed a few chances too, right? So and also Alexia Putellas exists. Like you just there's not shit you can do about that. But like,
she was tired.
She was just tired of seeing that nonsense. So she came on and got that done. But like, do you know what I mean? Like that wasn't hard for them. And quite honestly, if people were like, America does have a soccer culture, particularly in women's soccer, you would know like the style of play that we are most capable of executing gives those teams fits because one, they don't respect it. And I can say the same thing of most CONCACAF nations if you invested in them, and most South and Common Bowl nations if you invested in them, because the way we play soccer is different. And like they don't train against that. They have no idea. Like I said today on Twitter, like the way you give Barcelona fits is if you have speed on your wings and those wingers are good on the ball.
Yep.
And people like laugh, and I ended up being right because Nikita Paris came in and they played a lot better in the second half. And I'm like, but the reason I know that is because most of the Spanish national team is Barcelona players, and they ain't got shit for Kristen Press. Like she kills Spain every time. Yeah. It's because speed on the wings, and if you're good on the ball, if you put like a Midge Purse out there or something like that, they fuck because they can't defend that. That defense isn't actually that fast.
Even in the midfield, if you have a dynamic player like Roosevelt, you end up slicing through Barcelona. And that's what's wild. When I was arguing with people about the thing with Man City got whooped by Barcelona in the Champions League last year. In the second game, they almost came back because they started Roosevelt. And she gave them
LaBelle and Becky and him. Yeah. Like it make you bet on speed, which is infuriating about City now because they won't. Like you, but like, free Bunny Shaw, man. But that's it's a different conversation for a different day. But that's what I mean. Like we, in spite of all of this, right? Like in spite of all of the abuse they endure, all of the lack of power they have, even the star players have just been able to start manipulating their way essentially into spots that they want, but they can't make demands. They're not LeBron. They can't be like, I want to go to the Lakers, figure it out. They have no pull, even at the height of their powers, even at the height of their notoriety, right? And so, in spite of all of that, I would say pound for pound, we're certainly tied in terms of talent, right? Like, so imagine what it looks like if you pay people, and this is a destination spot outside of just this is the United States, and people show up to games, even on weekdays.
At different times, you've seen the various U.S. leagues try to be that destination league, but then I think because of their perpetual dysfunction, they realize, you try to bring a boatload of Japanese players back at the beginning of the decade. They said, nah, eventually they move on. Somehow they take care of Marta. I'm surprised that, for everything
well, and Marta
she's done.
Played overseas for a while, right? Like she didn't come until Orlando got a team.
She saw both sides. She's like, okay, I'll take what's here.
But and what I will tell you though is this: one, Brazil had their own issues, right? She couldn't go home.
So many issues,
right? She had to make a plea during the World Cup game before they got their shit together. Two, she's not allocated. Like she's not ours. She's not allocated. There are things Marta can say that our players cannot say, right?
So that actually brings up something that while I was listening to your episode, that I don't know if it just concerns me or I think like y'all said earlier, even the top players don't have much pull because given how long a lot of these incidents have gone on, because like the Sinead Farelly situation with Paul Riley, I think that dated back to 2015. Yeah. And so I can't assume like how the women's locker room dynamic works, but I'm gonna at least lightly assume that some people knew, and that, and as we found out, usually if there's one situation, one place, there's probably a similar situation somewhere else, and another situation going on elsewhere. Like I said, that's how the pattern grows.
Yeah.
But in the position of you have the majority of the U.S. women's national team in your league, and you have some Canadian national team members in your league. I think this would have been an opportunity to where, if they had the true power that honestly I think they had the whole time, this is where they could have stepped in and said like, hey, we are this a month aside from the pay issues that we're already trying to work on. You also have this issue too.
No, it would never work. Because it's like, think about it. The U.S. Women's National Team has existed for several, 20-something years, right? 20, 30-something years. It took them until 2018 to sue the Federation. Because the NWSL also falls under U.S. soccer.
Right.
It's all the whole conglomerate. So who are you arguing? You're already arguing on a national team to validate your humanity, to give you equal pay. They could give two shits about the NWSL. And so you're kind of stuck in a system that's still like a power.
I've seen this argument and I knew it was coming. So I think one, notoriety and power aren't inherently the same thing.
No, it's not the same at all.
Two, even within the United States Women's National Team, there are levels, right?
True.
Who does what, right? If you go look at the PA right now, right? You can literally Google United States Women's National Team PA. It lists all of the people, positions. So they're voting members or they have a position on the board. Some of those players are no longer allocated. And you can see the disparities, right? Like Jessica McDonald's a voting member. Jessica McDonald doesn't have power. She has a vote, but she doesn't have power. Not really, right? And nor do I think Jessica, and I'm using her as an example, but she's the poster child for NWSL. That is what she literally is what the NWSL is. She
lived it. She's gone through it.
Played for 5 teams, all this other stuff. She's had to scratch and claw her way. She's had a completely different road to this thing than anybody else, which actually makes her story fantastic and compelling. And also, it does. None of that. That's
a big reason why she was in the LFG movie, because her situation is
that side, right. But I go back to Skye's point, and there's a really good article about when the NWSL PA started, right, and that's when now interim GM Yael Averbuch West for Gotham was the president of the PA, right, when they started up. There's a good article about that, and she touches on that, and she's like, yeah, one day we'd like to combine. But she also talks about the positives of that existing, and at every point in that article, she's like, they have our backs. It's not, these players all played together. It's not contentious, right? To me, I haven't heard non-national team players be like, fuck them. Now, do some of them maybe feel that way?
If it's somebody that rhymes with Marley Toy, then it might be a different story. But
there's a different. But that's for a different. But that's for a different reason. So that's not a labor thing.
Right.
And that's a whole different.
That's a white supremacy. Oh, my bad.
That's us talking about the whiteness.
Sorry. Oops, my bad.
But that doesn't seem to be the dynamic, and ultimately, everybody's in that union, even though they can't quote unquote protest yet until December, because that's when the collective bargaining agreement's up, and that thing's gonna die. They're not gonna renew it, and I don't think they're gonna renew it separately.
I can't imagine, just given everything that's happened and transpired in the past 2 months, let alone the last 2 years that we've covered on earlier in the show. There's no way. And I think that the question that I posed earlier, and it still kind of stands, is that how exactly do you go back to playing just the rest of this season, let alone get to the offseason where you can finally negotiate a new CBA and try to hammer down a real constitution, as far as these are rights that players should have no matter what's going on, and be able to have an avenue of where if there is some type of abuse, they can report it safely. I know that they announced that the NWSL PNS, they were working with Safe Sport, I believe.
No,
and
which is
y'all got it wrong too. Y'all got it wrong too on y'all show.
Oh, we did.
Yeah, but just having that avenue, because this is something that Skye and I dealt with personally with with a player, like trying to figure out an avenue where they can report shit anonymously and not have to worry about retaliation. Because for those of y'all that don't know and that really don't know like how this game works, retaliation is something that is a legal thing in FIFA. Like this is something that has happened at all levels of the game, and it's something that unless you have it on paper that you can't do it, believe me, it is fair game. And that's something that, especially in a nation like ours that actually likes to use human resources and says that, hey, there's some shit that you just can't do to fellow employees. Yeah, like that's something that you have to put on paper, and because you have Louisville situation, you have the Gotham situation, you have the Washington situation, you have the Portland situation, you have the Seattle situation. That's over half the team just at the league right there. North Carolina, so 6.
Oh yeah, it's over.
The league is 9 teams, right? So yeah,
it's
like
10, and Houston's had stuff in the past too. Like it's pretty
7?
much touched every team.
Yeah. And that's something that, I think given how abundant it is, it's like it's not like it's a case of like where it's just one team. Like you really have to really just say stop. And this was a point that I made on Twitter earlier, is that when Lisa Baird first came on as commissioner, it was like February of last year. I'm like, of course, given her existing role on the board with U.S. Soccer and also working with the U.S. Olympic Committee, you knew some of this shit that was on the books, and but at the same time, you see all this momentum that's coming. You're getting this TV deal. You're seeing this expansion money starting to come in. You're like, okay, I want this money to come in, but if I stop things and try to get shit right, it might fuck up that momentum. Mm-hmm. And so instead, what you do is like, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and just keep pushing this thing off as much as I can, and then and then the shit finally hits the fan, and you're out of a job, and
I don't know.
What?
She's never behaved like a commissioner. She's acted like a branding exec.
Yeah, because like in a lot of because in soccer the idea of commissioner is kind of different, because like in most cases they have like a chief executive, but like even then, like you're still talking about how trying to do right by the league required stopping, and they didn't want to stop.
But I don't know. Well, no. This is where we talk about like the lack of anti-racism.
Yeah, but in order to fix all that,
so you could still do stuff in tandem if you're strategic enough. So I see, like I'm saying this from a place that I've witnessed people do this, where there's mass chaos happening, but you can strategically move through and do what you need to do at the same time, because you just need to have quality public relations officials. Then you need to have. And this is where I could tell Lisa was in over her head. She know what the fuck she didn't expect. It's like she got this job, didn't know the hell she was getting into. That's a lie. She knew portions of it, but she didn't think it was gonna blow up the way it has blown up. Mm-hmm. And so if you strategically have plans for how you deal with all these things, and you get people to fill in the blanks for the stuff that you don't know, you can handle all this stuff in tandem.
If you have good delegation and actually have good people around you and around the league, then yes.
Well, yeah, if you don't have Karen, Bob, and Johnny
and Sage Steele, and Sage Steele, yes.
God. But and also, so part of it too is in terms of the actual league offices located physically in Chicago, Illinois.
Listen, fucking Chicago.
They don't have a staff. That's part of it, right? So you're charging quote unquote league officials with doing this. You don't actually have league officials. 2, the commissioner works on behalf of the ownership, right? So, like I said on the pod, like 100% they threw Lisa Baird under the bus. I also have no sympathy.
Oh yeah, even if they didn't want, even if they could have saved her, there was no way to save her. Like that just wasn't what happened.
Yeah, there's no trust there, right?
Yeah.
the thing about stopping though is they kind of did, right? Like COVID stopped everybody. And
that's the thing, like it stopped everything cold to where nothing was getting done. And now could they have used that time as an opportunity to like, hey, let's actually go work on cleaning some shit up? Yes, but at the same time, they were like, yeah, we're not even going outside. They rather just have the challenge cup.
But they were up there freaking about league money. Like she wouldn't even think about that.
Yeah,
she was thinking about how to get sponsorships. How do you get the NWSL on a steady platform so you're not on the Go 90 or the fucking the YouTube. You don't have the whatever sport team or the local whatever the fuck shooting your shit in horrible quality. So you had that issue. And some of that stuff's understandable, but again, like I could tell she wasn't a good. Her concept of leadership and vision, there was no strategy in terms of how to move.
She's never been in that.
She was just right. She was riding the wave that was already there, and the problem with that was, again, you're not comprehensively dealing with the issues that are one that came up while you were commissioner, and then two, the ones that were already there when you came in. So like it reached a point to where like it became beyond clear that she wasn't the one, and now you're probably with an even bigger situation, because now that I'm not gonna say everything is out there, but let's just say big shit is out there.
The whole world is watching, right? Like it's been everywhere, right?
And that's something that we said would happen when they got this new CBS deal. It was like, because they never had a platform that big before, and so it's gonna be more eyes on the project. You okay with this?
My computer's dying. I'm trying to plug this stuff in, and it's struggling. All right, there we go.
But you have all these new eyes, and you have a bigger platform, and you realize that I can't do the same shit that I was doing 3 years ago when we were on Lifetime. And granted, Lifetime had very good coverage. Don't sleep on that shit. But
they had better camera angles than the NWSL does right now. But that's a whole different conversation. But
you're not addressing the wholesale issue. Well, take your time over there. Take your time. But
it wasn't our earthquake, y'all.
Shut up. But you're dealing with a situation where more eyes are on you, and you have to be on your shit. And like we should have known from the moment that the Sarah Gordon incident happened. It was like, and how they handled that situation. Say, this might not be it.
So I think too, right? It might be a situation of too much too soon in that you didn't anticipate like having to lay out an infrastructure to take all that comes with the influx of money and viewership that was coming. Yeah. On top of that, you set up the Challenge Cup. That was the first team sport in America to come back. Like everyone's watching, and it's a women's sport, right? So they're going to be extra critical. And so the biggest pressure is to simply pull it off, right?
Right.
What got them was the Challenge Cup happened right when George Floyd happened. And having to navigate all of the social stuff. So as a sport, you're the one everyone's looking at. You're a women's sport, because you're already going to be under more scrutiny. You're coming off the back of the 2019 World Cup and the 2020 qualifiers for the Olympics. Nobody knows if the Olympics are happening yet or not. Mm-hmm. You're at a point in the league where you have more Black players than you've ever had. And this social watershed moment happens, right? That they cannot predict. And so they've got to figure out how to put this on and deal with their shit that they help perpetuate, by the way. Because soccer's never had its own reckoning with racial justice. And so you have that first game with Portland and North Carolina, who are your two big squads, honestly. Mm-hmm. Or certainly most successful squads in recent memory. And they kneel, they do this. The first day is fine, and then shit starts changing, right? Like, has Lindsay knelt since? Like, I'm sincerely, right? you could watch these players change their mind in the middle of a tournament. And those conversations, and now as we've moved further along, right, we know what was happening behind these scenes, and these players can't go anywhere, right? Much like the rest of us, like we're isolated, like we can't go anywhere. And so what I think is interesting, right, you had this moment to pause and maybe fix stuff, but you're also finally putting players in a space where they, for better or worse, cannot escape each other. And so there's conversations, like to your point about the unions and things like that. That's the first time those national team players and non-national team players have
they're
been
all together in one
for
place
a prolonged amount of time, and they can have conversations and be like, it's like when somebody cheat on you and you don't know it, but then you talking to other people who know that scumbag, and y'all having conversations, and you like, wait a minute. That timeline looks real different when you start having conversations with others.
And with that, you could, the person that's probably in question is right down the hallway. You're like, oh, let me get this information real quick.
Right, because Lisa Baird's there too. The league officials are there too, right? A lot of the owners are there too, right? And you're holding it in Utah, and the first domino to fall is going to be DLH, right? Like it's going to be Delaware Henson. And so they're holding it in Utah, which ain't really trying to hear about all this George Floyd protest stuff anyway, because it's Utah. Right, so they can't get out of this ultra conservative space, and it's just it is, and again, harkening back to the whiteness of it all, right? Like it is the image that you want to present versus what is actually happening. It is in your first few games kneeling, and then also the image you run more than anything else is of Casey Kruger crying because fuck, it's hard to be black. And like she's just done that day. And Casey Kruger don't bother nobody. She's like the quietest person in the world, by all accounts, super nice. And she's done. Like she's done. And you're showing that image of Julie Ertz holding her, right? As
don't forget the hand. Don't forget the hand.
But do you know what I mean? Like, but it's real interesting that that's the image you've chosen to represent your league. Mind you, there's a team missing.
Yeah, Orlando.
Young players don't know how to act and got COVID, and Ash and Allie and Sid done cussed everybody out. Because they don't know how to act. Right. So you're already missing a team, right? So you're really hyper aware that you've got to try to make the rest of this succeed. And they get away with it, right? Like it actually ends up being decent football, particularly toward the end, and they complete it, right? And you crown a champion, and it's a team nobody expects to win, right? Like that particular format seems to benefit Houston versus an entire season, right? And so you have these sort of great stories coming out of it, but meanwhile, these players have talked. Like that's how you get the Black Women's Players Collective, because by the end of that tournament, they're like, this league's not going to do anything. We'll do it ourselves.
I'm glad you brought them up because you mentioned them during your episode, and as of yet, they have yet to comment on any of this.
Has anybody asked them?
Yes, I was going to ask you that. Like, has anyone just said, hey, what are your thoughts? Because given everything that's happened, like this is definitely an avenue of where one, they absolutely need to be involved, and I think if this is supposed to get any better, you need Black, Hispanic, Asian, LGBTQ.
Wait.
Like, oh, what's up?
NWSL is hyperly white. And so let's flash back. The Black Women's Players Collective has not been treated like a legitimate entity at all since its inception. Because I ain't seen Lisa Baird reach out to nothing, acknowledge them in nothing.
She said they did about the Rise thing. And I'm like, none of them players seemed like they knew that was coming, right? Like, so it's one of those, like, the Black Women's Players Collective is like the Black student on the college brochure.
Wow. I think TK was on that.
That you tried out for diversity, but you don't actually do nothing for the Black students on your campus. Like, that's what that is.
I'm pretty sure TK was on the one for Valdosta State. I can confirm or deny that.
Hey!
My homie was on the one for UD forever. That man graduated like 5 years.
Hey, I was on the brochure.
Before that, he was still on the
I was on the brochure, but not undergrad. We got Negroes everywhere.
Yeah,
Negroes.
you do.
At
City, but like still, they don't.
Yes, they got so many Negroes. It's Negro Nation. People, you go there, you're like, that's a lot of Negroes at a PWI.
Do they go there, or are they just in them?
No, they go there. No. Georgia Tech graduates the most Black engineers worldwide. Period.
That's fair.
I always see them when I be.
You gotta go. No, you gotta go on the campus, man. Don't do that. Stop playing.
They leave.
I'm not taking back. What's that field over there by the pool? That's like by
the campus recreation center.
Yeah.
Yeah, they be playing soccer and shit in the little on the rec field.
That's where I see them. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I was about to say something. I was about to say the Nubians be out there.
Yes, Nubians is good. But yeah, like that's honestly how I feel. Like even in terms of like fundraising efforts to get their movie made or to be able to supply these camps, and they're trying to make change, they've had to do it themselves.
By themselves. Yes.
Like I got the T-shirt that goes, donate some of that to the Black Women's Players Collective. They've had to do their own work. The league's not supporting them on that, because if the league supported the Black Women's Players Collective, that would mean the league was actually doing anti-racist work, and we know that's a whole lie. So, as Black women and non-binary folks tend to do, is F it, we'll do it ourselves. Like that's genuinely how that collective got started. Like it's not deeper than that. It was the summer of 2020. It had been building anyway. The sport is incredibly racist and incredibly white. And they were like, enough. And they were, again, in a space where most of them were in a bubble, right? Not all of them, but even the people that weren't there were on the call. Like, it's not, and you've heard Kaya, speak some about that too, but it's just, even in that, right? And that's the Black Women's Players Collective. And there's more Black women than there are Latina women or Native women or AAPI, right? Yep. Like, so it's just, there's no effort whatsoever, right? And you can tell by who they partner with. They partner with Rise. That makes no sense.
A joke of an organization.
It's a joke, and it's on a year contract. There's no way you're doing DEI.
Right.
Well, that's how to do players, so you don't get that 1+1.
That's how you know it's bullshit. That's how you know it's bullshit. That's how you know they was like, hey, we see you got that problem. Let us come through and do a little trial for you.
It's a check box, right? It's something you do to say you did it, and you can check it off a list.
And so then you sit there
or anything else.
You sit there, you say, we got a rep from the NWSL PA, and we got somebody from the Black Women's Players Collective, and we had a little meeting, and they agreed. Please.
Did it sound like this person knew what was happening?
Right. And then you ask the VPs of each, and they're like, we never knew about any of this.
That's Sarah Gordon. Sarah Gordon was like, I'm sorry, what you talking about?
And then they asked the VP of the NWSL PA, and she was like, I don't know what you talk about. And so it's like, oh, okay, so we know how that goes. Because I've been in those meetings where you get told, yeah, we want your opinion. And we like, it's a bad idea, y'all. You shouldn't do that shit. And then they go do it, and then they get embarrassed in the news and lose millions of dollars. But that's neither here nor there. I have to tell you about that offline. But you had stuff like that happen.
But again, I think that speaks back to like, there's nothing. And again, I'm going back to Kaya. One, because I want to make sure she gets the due praise that should be shown. But two, like I remember even the first time I was on one of these roundtables with her, like there's no mechanisms in place. They just got an anti-harassment policy this year, right? So even when players were, reporting things, right? Again, Alex Morgan at the height of her powers put her name to that report, and all Farelly did was get another job, right? Like it's not. And so, like, yes, again, people are known, but like, there's no mechanism because the ultimate person is still U.S. Soccer, and they run everything.
And that was something that, before, like, I was on the way home from work today, and for those of y'all who aren't aware and or not familiar with how U.S. Soccer is linked with NWSL, for many players within NWSL, U.S. Soccer is paying their salary, and so a lot of what's going on, you're basically saying you have U.S. Soccer involved, so it's like it's a matter of complicitness and be like, hey, we have a coach out here in Portland that's, having an illicit relationship with a player. Although let's just go ahead and send him over to North Carolina, no big deal. And U.S. Soccer is involved. Canada Soccer is involved. The Mexican Federation is involved. Like, if you really start following the money, you could really start getting into some real shit because, again, you're talking about like federations that are involved and could have easily just said like, hey, we're pulling our money if you don't get your shit right, and they said, hey, we are shocked and appalled at what is going on, as if they just knew about this on Thursday.
See, but that's how you trip up U.S. Soccer though, because who started the NWSL though is U.S. Soccer.
Well, and even then, right, the federations that are shocked and appalled, right? Canada got their own stuff too, because all that abuse they haven't dealt with. What is his name? Bob. Oh, it's a B. It is with a B. But out here it has been reported too, and they haven't done anything yet, right? Mexico has severely underfunded their women. They just got their first women's coach, and the Mexican Federation was talking about trying to make the women serve the punishment for the chant that the men.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they don't value them. Now, I will give it to Mexico. They started Liga MX Femenil in part to build their national team, and it's worked.
Hello, Canada. By the way. Hello, Canada, get that done. But
I think it'll be interesting because I think Canada's more likely to have a team first to see if it works, and then they'll build.
Right? Yeah.
Honestly, there's been enough shit that's gone on just within American soccer and U.S. soccer. It's like, at what point is Canada just get a clue and say, you know what, we're better off on our own? Like, because y'all keep.
I would hope ultimately that's the deal.
I mean, but it seems like all these federations got the same mentality. They're not valuing women.
That's the issue. Yeah,
they do. But I definitely think that the more they can do on their own, the better. And but hopefully, like I said, like they have to figure out their shit too, because like. It's not like
only that they don't invest in women's soccer either. You couldn't buy a Canadian women's national team jersey and they won the Olympics. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's so even if it's not abuse, which again they're not removed from. They have their own problems, but it's also the investment, right? And for however messy the United States is, comparatively speaking, we've invested the most in women's soccer, and it's still the minimum of $31,000 a year, right? And so other leagues might pay their women more, pay players in women's soccer. I'm trying to be very cognizant about these things, how I word things. But to pay those players, they make a lot more. But then you have like Manchester City, everybody's hurt right now. But that's one of the few clubs where I can think comparatively, right? Their men and women get relatively the same funding in terms of facilities, nutrition. Though again, this season is a different conversation, etc. Maybe them and like Lyon, right? Like, and Lyon was part of why Lyon's successful was because the owner of that team saw it early on, right? Like, he saw it at the turn. He saw the '99 World Cup basically, and he was like, okay, the money's going to be in women's soccer. Like, he saw it, and so he said, I'll just build a team, right?
But I think what he went into and is something that is a very historical lesson. It actually comes back here to the U.S. When the Dodgers moved to L.A., they realized that they couldn't move alone, and so they convinced the Giants to leave Polo Grounds in New York and move to San Francisco. It could never be just one team that says, okay, we're going to do right, and it just be only us. Like, you need at least one other team that says, hey, we're going to do this with you. And even if it's not nearly quite as much, at least it's on a some competitive balance to where it ain't always just PSG doing it, winning the league for the men. It's like you might have Lyon winning it, like if PSG wins it 6 times, Lyon wins it 4, and here you have on the women's side you have Lyon that's like I think they won like 6 Champions Leagues in a row. It's like
7 and 8 years or something like that.
Yeah, like you need another team up in there that says that hey, we're going to do right just as much as you are and keep this thing competitive.
Right for now, right?
Yeah.
So I'll say for the NWSL, with the arrival of Angel City, who could give 2 shits about which I thought the thought was thinking was logical, and then OL Reigns' behavior outside of the Ben City shit.
They're flagrant.
Both those teams as a pair are trying to change the game in the United States because they see where the money is. They see the money, the choo-choo train. They see the choo-choo train, the choo-choo of the coins and the cha-chings and the dollar bills and the billions. See, they're not trying to be thousandaires. They're trying to be billionaires.
Yeah.
And so because they're trying to approach things differently, you'll see some transformation. It's just shitty that everything's hitting the fan at the same time, left and right.
I don't think there's any other way for this to happen because there was literally like no other.
Yeah.
There was no other way.
There's no other mechanism that would have protected the league from everything falling the way it did. And like I said, we talked about it on your show. We mentioned in our show. Also, want to shout out Diaspora United. They've been talking about it on their pod. Like this shit was due to hit the fans sooner rather than later. It's just a matter of basically everyone getting the story together and boom.
It was like a flying porta potty.
Right. And it was always coming. And I think, listen, WOSO's not that big a world, right? Like everybody knew bits and pieces, right?
Right.
I didn't know. No, and I'm not as connected as some people, but like I assume like I heard bits and pieces of like Paul Riley might be a little aggressive, like verbally in practices, yada yada. Ain't no way in hell I knew that.
Yeah,
that was right?
Like what?
So, some of it is just culture of abuse stuff in general, right? No one talks because they're shamed because you are manipulated into thinking you're the only one. Everything in that article was vile, but what struck me was old girl turned down her national team spot because she had it.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which is great.
That's a level of manipulation that I'm just like, damn. Now she was young, but like speaking of Diaspora United, Courtney saw her play in college. She went to UVA, and she's like, "That's the best."
She was good. She was really fucking good.
She was so good, and that was her spot. So like the level of control that these men, for the most part, not all, have. Like you had enough power to get somebody to give up a national team spot, which meant money and exposure. And had she gotten in, she probably would have stayed in the pool because it was at a time when we were outside of Holiday or Cheney at the time. We were bleeding midfielders. Like we didn't have that kind of talent in the midfield. So she probably would have still been playing.
She probably still would have been playing for sure.
And that part of the article was actually kind of interesting because it definitely seemed like Riley had his own resentment towards U.S. soccer because
he was a bitter bitch. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to say that, but
because
he was a bitter bitch. Yes,
because he was on the short list possibly to get the management national team, and they I think that's when they went with Miss Ellis and he definitely harbored that ill. And that translated over to obviously the people around them and basically got them to believe that you can't be on this team unless I'm managing the national team. I'm like, fuck you. I'm getting on this team.
Inability to manipulate players. Like I made you, right? Like
I made you with these hands.
I made you good. No, you didn't. She was good in college. She was good before you ever got your hands on her, right? Like. So I just think it's been such an entrenched culture, and again, abuse happens everywhere, right? Kelly just got charged. Like it's not like Black and brown people don't have their own cultures of abuse. We absolutely do. But I think in the ways that it's played out in this country and in women's soccer in this country, it's incredibly white, right? Like there's this idea of niceness, an idea of performance and appearance and not rocking the boat and cowtailing to white men. I don't give a fuck about making white men feel better. Like I don't like I'm not, and not to say like I don't ever have to code switch or maneuver those spaces.
But fuck the opinions of a white dude.
But there's no way you're gonna he's not gonna go after Black and brown players, because what I would say that article
it's a different code. And I think some of what the article also touches on, I think I said this briefly on the podcast, but like one, in all of these instances, right, be it here, the Australia article is interesting. I think there are some Australian players that have spoken up about some inconsistencies there, but I don't want to discredit anyone's story. But even in like the stories about Venezuela and the national team and all the horrendous things happening down there with their former coach, like you have homophobia running through those, right? And I'm pointing that out only to say that's the one way they've been able to other white women in that space, right? That takes away their femininity, right? And so that's clearly what he latches onto. So there's no way a Black or brown player is ever going to get that, because he don't think they're women anyway, or he doesn't value who they are enough to even go there, right? And two, we ain't giving up a national team spot because they don't get them. For who? For what? Like, I'm like that's never going to happen, and they're never going to think to ask that, right? It's just a different, like you said, it's a different dynamic, and there wasn't enough critical mass of us to even have those conversations. And our violence and our abuse and our stuff is racial, right? Like our womanhood, or however you want to define that, is intrinsically tied to our race, right? So you don't see me as a woman, you see me as a Black woman. Like there's no way to separate my Blackness from my womanhood, right? And so I think that's part of why that strain also runs through WOSO. It's because it others people who wouldn't be that otherwise. So that's one. And two, there's a fear of lack of control, because clearly a lot of these dudes were using sex, the idea of sex, all of that to manipulate women or to get sex, right? And oh my God, if you're not attracted to men, then that takes away that option for me, said predator who wants that, right? Yeah, and I just think, but I think ultimately, right, like this particular culture of abuse looks really white, and down to like the white women who enable them, right? That isn't us, right? Like that is Lisa Baird, that is Amanda Duffy, who I cannot believe they put on this committee.
I can't believe they put her on there. Like, what the fuck? Okay, so keep
like you don't think she? So either for that, Amanda Duffy, I think I said this too. Either she knew and has no business being on this committee, or she didn't know, which means she's grossly incompetent and unaware and has no business being on this committee. Either way, there's no.
That's always the thing that you always kind of come to a crossroads on, because it's like there's so much that happened, and it's like, are you that ignorant, or were you just cool with it? And that's something that I hope that in the next few weeks and months and going into next year, it's beyond obvious that so much has to change, and so much has to, just improve, just to get to the point where we can say this is truly professional. Because right now it's just an environment of abuse posing as professionalism, right? And when it's nowhere near it.
It's professional in name only, is what I would say.
And definitely, whatever we can do to keep shining the light on this. And I know obviously with Shea Butter, this is y'all's primary focus is giving people that light and that platform. And I said it's not our expertise, so I don't try to fake it as if I'm that so-called expert. But at the same time, this is beyond deserving of our support and the awareness, because this shit is absolutely insane. And because, I mentioned it during the before we recorded, like a lot of this reminds me of back when Beckham first came to MLS, where when he got here and really got a really good survey as far as what was going on, he was like, this is some bullshit. And it forced the league to get better to where it is now. And then, granted, it ain't shit near perfect. And shout out to Ine Aluko for the words that she put out, because her immediate suggestions were free agency and eliminating allocation. And I'm like, hello, MLS. Hello. But yeah, definitely everybody should have their full rights as a player and not be controlled by a team that could basically forge your signature and say, hey, we're trading you to Portland.
I got blue federal crimes.
Yeah.
I'm
like, other federal crimes?
Yeah, you already got a former coach who is under investigation on a federal case, but forging visas for coaches and stuff like that.
That's so y'all forging contracts to trade players?
And I imagine again, and that's Nadia Nadeem, right? Like, so you imagine somebody who doesn't have that name recognition,
right? And that's the kind of stuff that obviously needs to be addressed. So again, we can get to a place of where the NWSL is exactly what it is. What they say it is. It's a professional league that houses the best players and treats them like that, and allows this league to grow to what we all hope it can be, especially in these next few years. You have Angel City coming, you have San Diego coming. I believe, has Bay Area been announced yet?
No, but they're working on it. They should be the next one of the next two teams. Yeah.
There's been a lot of talk about Atlanta coming into the league. Of course, now having all this stuff come out, I'm probably like, imagine Arthur Blank getting involved in this type of shit. That would not go down well.
Not right.
So, he would be like, he'd get his mob boss, he'd get his mob crew and be like, no.
Yeah.
No, I think they'll hold off. I think eventually Atlanta will get a team, but I don't think
they will. But yeah, I could definitely understand, like, if they even got a whiff of all this, they were like, nah, we gonna fall back. But hopefully,
I agree with you though. I think free agency is the big one, because you could do that with. I mean, it would be nice to have a CBA, but like you could do that, right? And I think of all the things, that's what the owners fear, because the power is gone, right? The minute you have free agency, those players can do what they want.
Right. And they
in
can
a sport
force your
where
hand.
they've never in a country and in a sport where they've never had that kind of power, right? And keep in mind, like club soccer, right, in its current iteration for women's soccer in this country is maybe 20 years old, and you've already had two failed leagues, right? Because they didn't get the UWSL until after 99.
Well, I thought about this. I had epiphany last night. So part of why they've been so hesitant about a CBA and losing control is because of so let's say Angel City, for example. Angel City gave Kristen Press $700,000 over the course of what will be 3 years. Yeah. Make that shit. And of course, as with inflation, the price will go up over the course. Never get confused. And so other teams are like, oh, fuck. Because if you bring in free agency and players can then dictate where the hell they play, that wrestles away the power of the federation. Because the thing about women's soccer, like, never get it fucked up and twisted. Because the lack of investment by nations, you have, in the case of England, you got a lot of fans who are more concerned about their fucking club team than their national team.
Everywhere else on earth is club over country.
Yeah. So, and this is why I'm saying a club.
It's culture of a club, y'all.
That's what this a club World Cup could make mad fucking money. I could totally see where Angel City, OL Reign, Lyon are all up in the thought process that, we can make billions of dollars if we do this right. And if players were able to get paid correctly, get treated correctly, and then ball out the fucking control. Like, just imagine the American crowd showing up to a World Cup situation. We got the fashion show, people getting fluked out.
And it's a solid investment because you do not have to invest as much money to make the money back, right? Like, the sport is young enough where the investment is less than what you would have to do for men's soccer.
Yeah, that was something I noticed. Like in the news with Steve Baldwin, like, and I guess like the suggestion was made for him to sell, and I guess like the evaluation was at $5 million. And I'm like, dude,
and he was overcharging.
And I'm like, but
$5 million, so cheap though. In theory,
right? Exactly, and that's something that, like I said,
for a team with Trinity Rodman, Tegan McGrady, however you feel about it.
And then he was fumbling the bag. So it was pissing me off with DC. With Washington Spirit in particular, you're a motherfucking DC. You can have that stadium packed out. It should not be no issue to pack out Audi Field if you market correctly and you do it right, particularly because you got Trinity Rodman on your fucking team. This is easy.
That, but the DMV is a pretty big hotbed.
Right. So, people could be swag surfing at the soccer brunch before the fucking game to be up in the lituation. Right. Yeah, I'm available, y'all. Come hire me now. Let me get you right.
But it's minimum investment for people who have money. It's minimum investment for maximum gain, right? And like even the inability to see that, right? Or I even think about like they just had that huge deal in England with Sky Sports to show the WSL, but I'm like, again, those clubs have money. You think it costs Liverpool a lot of money to invest enough to get their women back to top flight soccer?
No. It's like a
you pay Mo Salah that in like 2 weeks.
So actually, the WSL and their Sky Sports deal is a good example because they've had like millions and trillions of millions of people watching the games, and it's like they're getting the return on the money already. Right. So,
but it's something that speaking of deals and everything, I want to give another quick shout out to the Ted Lasso show for signing a new deal with the Premier League for basically like having access to their content, teams, and all that stuff. As they probably spoiled the season finale for this week, but hey, that's okay. Because mind you, I'm not even invested in Ted Lasso for that at this point. I got an issue with Nate. Nate would have to see me. Nate would just have to see me.
I keep hearing Nate is wilding, but I'm not there yet.
Wilding out of control. I haven't watched the show. Wilding out of control. Like yeah, dude. Like that's a down in itself. But yo, TK.
What?
I know it feels like we've been ignoring this episode, but I gave you a shout out like at the first thing in the episode this week because I wanted to again shine light on the strike that was announced on Monday. Just want to make sure I got your thoughts on that.
Yeah, man. For those who don't know, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
For those who don't know, ILT is the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, and we are essentially the people and employees behind your favorite television shows, your favorite animation cartoons, favorite concerts, those kinds of shows as well. So we're the people who are helping making the movies you like, essentially. And we want better hours, like working 14-hour days. Actually, there's a great interview from Elijah Wood if you tune into another podcast, Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard interviews Elijah Wood, and he talks about filming of Lord of the Rings, where they filmed 16-hour days. 16-hour days. And that movie was shot consecutively. A lot of people maybe don't realize it.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Together. That's ridiculous.
So it was like a big boom for the economy as well. And it's a whole thing. It's wrapped up. There's still some stuff I even need to look up. But it's just crazy. Just imagine working like as the actor. The actor is saying that he's working 16-hour days. So imagine what the crew is going through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're getting paid millions, and the Boom Man is not.
Not at all. The Boom Man has a to-go container to take the craft services food and go home.
Yeah, I mean they don't even. You're describing what it used to be. The last time I worked for Marvel, we missed lunch. And I wrote that in my time card. Actually, as a matter of fact.
Pause. Marvel?
Yeah. They do everything.
$1 billion Marvel.
Yeah, that team.
Yeah.
That's the company. this is a time card from Marvel. I actually had to get my money late because it was a whole
See, this is the type
debacle.
of
It
shit.
was a whole debacle. So as you could probably tell, I voted yes. There's a little bit of my rant. Also probably wrapped into my up and down, which it was last week as well. But the whole point of this being is that during the pandemic, streaming companies, all rights have been getting paid because what have we all been doing? Intaking content at home at glorious amounts. Like my subscription is out of the world, right? Out of out of this world right now. So I need to trim the fat on that one personally.
Yeah, same. I did that just last week. Matter of fact.
Yeah, Amazon about to go. Maybe a couple others, but I digress. Just as bringing light to just having safe working conditions. People are working throughout this pandemic. I can tell you other countless stories of people who my compatriots, who are actually in the trenches working these crazy hours. And I have a 9 to 5 and do this stuff on. I step out of the office and go do that kind of stuff. So it's very, very important that we stand up and we show the form of solidarity. And then I think it was just a beautiful thing to see all the people who voted.
Yeah, it was almost unanimous, all things considered. And I know, like in a lot of cases, of course, depending on the show and the demands, in a lot of cases, like the on-screen talent usually tries to strike along with them because it's all about because they're part of the actors have their own union as well, and they try to stick together whenever you have these type of work stoppages. So hopefully everyone gets this resolved sooner rather than later, because I'm trying to keep you on the pole, man. I'm trying to make sure E's good, Katie's good. Like I said, we got to make sure you get paid out here in the streets, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's real, and I just
and note the common theme: safe working conditions
and the labor. I think that's what the pandemic has done, right? Like the labor is taking their power back, right? And I think that's the fear of all the people in power, right? They can't hire people to work at restaurants anymore because why would you at this point?
Yeah, they're tired. They're tired of fuck shit.
But like even that strike, even NWSL-PA and the United States PA, like even everybody's taking their power back.
Yeah, even like with Uber, Lyft.
Yeah,
you got like shortages because they're now doing the eats because they're like, I ain't got to get canceled on by people. Like
I think DoorDashers went on strike a couple
of
months ago. Like it's just you can't treat people like that, right? Because what will always work is the labor realizes if you don't have the labor, you don't have anything.
Right.
Not to sound all Marxist, but like you don't have anything. If in soccer your players don't play, what are you gonna show?
Who's showing up?
They're not coming to see Merritt Paulson. I'm just using an example. Like they're coming to see.
Yeah, no matter what he tells you, they're not coming.
He might think that. Well, once I found out who his daddy was, it makes so much sense. Sorry, but yeah, like they're coming to see the talent.
Right.
Everybody watched Barcelona Arsenal today for the talent. I don't give a fuck. Ain't nobody watched to see Jonas and whoever's coaching Barcelona because it don't matter. Like
it don't matter.
It really doesn't matter.
It just like put the things out there.
I don't know who's coaching them now. I don't know. But do you know what I mean? Like you're going to see the talent. You're going to see the movies because the grips and the boom person and the catering person and the custodial staff makes the movie experience possible. Or the writers make it possible, or the actors make it possible. Like
speaking of
nobody's going to see Eisner from Disney in a film because he's not in it.
Name's Bennett and I ain't in it. But
sorry, I mean to bring up the scary people.
That was funny that you mentioned it. That was actually the last strike that happened. Was the when the writers' strike about 2 years ago?
Yeah, the 2 years ago. Yeah.
So. But I want to try to end things light as I can. just a quick update. Of course, you still got 2 more weeks left with the with this round of the Legends of Culture hoodies with Sadio Mane and Brandon Scurry. They go off sale on this. Actually, no, it's less than 2 weeks because they go in on the 16th.
Oh, y'all wearing hoodies out here? It's still hot as shit.
Dude,
it's about to be cold.
Not everybody is in LA, but trust me, I hear you with the tank tops, and we will see about hooking that up.
Guys, all about the tank tops. Is that Renard shirt still an option? Because that's pretty fun.
Oh yeah. Oh, you mean this right here? Oh, I had to do a little sample.
Who is that? Yeah.
Wendy or not?
Yeah. I do have this available because, like I said, let me just. I'm going through the list right now. Again, we're announcing the next round for basically like October, November. We're going to do one that was supposed to come out this month, but for some reason the store kept acting stupid. We're doing Ronaldo Fenomeno. Of course, we gave him a shout out a couple weeks ago for his birthday. His hoodie is coming out on October 16th, and also popular demand, one that we didn't really release back early in the year, but some people got the G14 access. We're doing the red version of Queen Crystal. Yeah, okay. that one is coming out.
Yeah, don't need to see that one, fam.
So get ready for that one on October 16th. Of course, you can still get the Mane and Brian Scurry one at ftcutd.myshopify.com. Like I said, we'll figure something out with Bernard.
You should start working on that.
Can we get a short sleeve?
You should start. Oh my god!
I keep trying to find a vendor that can do short sleeve hoodies because I want that myself. And
hell yeah!
It's a bitch,
but find someone in Florida.
Yeah. So what happened to your boy? Like, so yeah, see if you hook that up. So we'll definitely
I'm gonna tell you
make that work if possible.
For future reference, and this is me in reckless speculation, you might want to start working on that Crystal Dunn Angel City mock-up jersey.
Oh, okay.
I want to.
We've moved on from sign Kristen to sign Crystal. Okay.
All black everything, fam.
Look, trust. You better believe Angel City gonna be stacked like a motherfucker. I got season tickets, baby. I'm gonna be in the midfield box, looking in. And eating my hot dogs and enjoying the fanfare.
How much the hot dogs?
It's gonna be free. My seat comes with free food.
You get it. Oh
shit. So
Skye's a baller.
Yo, man, I was about to be. So I'm pissed off. My down is I could have been seated in the lower section, but owners and stuff have brought it out. I'm sorry.
Let me give you this spotlight real quick. There we go. What you got?
You shouldn't even stopped her.
I'm so upset. You see, upset. I was trying to be in the because if you've never been to the bank, yes, the bank. I say the bank because it's like the fanciness of the stadium. If you've never been, it transforms your life to be sitting in the founder seats, whatever the founder field fucking seat, them damn seats. And in those seats, you get unlimited drink, you get phenomenal food. And you get to sit in cushy ass seats and watch people kick balls on people's foreheads. Like, I was pissed off I couldn't get those seats. And so I'm up in the midfield box. So I'll get the just basic fare. Won't get free drink. I don't be drinking like that no more anyway. But, that's my down.
You got any ups?
So I can walk and stuff again.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I figured it out. Massage guns changed my life.
Oh, yeah, those are real.
Those are real. Yeah. So I'm out here exercising and walking. We gonna go from teddy bear to stallion, y'all. We coming through. We gonna be out here. I
heard somebody call it thoughtum.
Yeah, it's gonna be thinner. It's gonna be thoughter. It's gonna be thought thinner.
Is there
Thoughter.
Is there like an Olympics for this?
Thoughtum.
Where you do the jumps?
Thoughtsgiving.
Oh, God. Thoughtsmith. Ho ho ho. Where you can get your ho 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 on? Be the ho-ho?
Everybody couldn't
For the
have a
ho?
hot girl summer, so you know.
Prefer the cakes.
That's what she said. But
no.
But that's
my other down was the Falcons, but I'm not gonna talk about it. I'm now a free agent.
You know, I said you and Maddie about to be out. So yeah.
No, he just released a statement. He made it clear. Like his wife told y'all, she got the source. Ain't nothing fucking happening. He just made it clear. Ain't nothing fucking happening. But anyway, I've moved on. I've moved on to a higher plane. I'm a fan, NFL fan, free agent. See, if I don't support a team, if I support from a distance, it's all good.
You gonna be out here like Rob Lowe with the NFL hat on? Just
NFL.
Seriously, TK. So we've neglected this episode, and I definitely do apologize. And so I want to make sure we get you good on the 2 up and 2 down. What you got, man?
Down would be the lawyer of the 3 gentlemen who shot or not. I guess they didn't all shoot him out operate, but the lawyer for these 3 guys, the father, son, and the neighbor. Yeah, man, he fuck that guy, honestly. Man, it's for real. Yeah, it's pretty intense. Like I was reading the article and it just like made me swelteringly mad, and I was like, oh man, I'm actually having like some feelings on the inside about it. Basically, they were wanting to have Ahmaud Arbery's mental records released.
Oh yeah, and the judge said, "Nah, chief."
Yeah, the judge denied it. So it was a big win for the prosecution, but for the defense attorney was saying that he was used some, and this is the thing that they do to blacks, to black people and other minorities, is they try to change the language with very demonizing words, and they said he's plagued by mental illness, and there's no way to know if he wasn't escalating and the instigator of this whole incident, and it's like, what the fuck?
Like they didn't run up on him and shoot him.
Yeah, and it's like more just like pissing on like people of color after they have been murdered in the street for no reason. And yeah, so you can imagine why I was a little furious. So that's my down. That one. My up is the percentage of voters who voted in the IATSE strike. I actually don't have it in front.
It's like 96%, something like that.
I'm gonna pull it up. No, I want to say the exact number because it is unprecedented thing, and it's I should have had it ready. That's on me, but it's just glorious. I think it was. Here we go. Loading. Of course, it takes me to. All right. Well, I'll put it in the video when it actually does come out. But the percentage is wild crazy. It's something like 98%, and then of people voted.
Yeah, it was pretty big.
It made you really like have faith in the country. It was like, holy shit, this is how many people voted, and then the amount of people who voted in favor of the strike. So it just seeing those numbers really restored my faith in humanity, and I was feeling pretty good about it actually. So
good.
There's not more to say on that one. Another I guess I said kind of that down earlier with just the strike in general. I don't want to pancake it, but I guess maybe I'll just do one up, one down. Been busy, got my head in the sandpit lately, so I didn't get to do my normal intro, so I'll put it in the outro.
It was 98.68%.
Yeah, 98.68% voted. Right.
89.66 turnout.
Turnout, yeah.
But 98.68 voted yes.
Mm.
Bro,
look at that solidarity. That's beautiful.
Those are numbers. So hopefully we see a change for those who do want to get involved in film work. hopefully the ASA is a better thing for us all in the future. So, like I said,
Definitely.
I'll leave it at the one up, one down. Just keep it moving.
Cool.
I was trying to be darker in the picture, but
Yeah, I know. I appreciated that.
You know,
On the shadow.
I mean,
I'm
no, I'm gonna say that one for Mike. What you got, Sylvs?
Okay, 2 up, 2 down. We'll do downs first. I mean, just the state of women's soccer is pretty much a downer right now. And I think more so because more is coming, and not for the good. More things are coming out. And it's necessary, right? I think in order to change things, you have to bring them to light, right? You can only be ashamed of what's in the dark. So I think there's power in telling stories. I'm a little scared for what's coming, just in terms of content and what's been done to players over long periods of time. But yeah, it's been hard, right? And I think most of us, particularly who are women or non-binary or non-men in general, and even men, have been in those situations. And I think a lot of people have been triggered for any number of reasons. And so it's just been a lot of processing. And I think, when you combine that with social media, there's a lot of takes, and some of them are wild and some of them are accurate and some of them are some combination thereof. It's just been a lot of like stimulation overload and just sadness and heartbreak, it feels like. So I know we have to weather this a little longer to see change, but it sucks. I'm not gonna lie to you. So that's one down. I think the second down, and I think I mentioned this on the podcast, but it's been a really hard 2 weeks for the Black community at my place of employment, and particularly our students. And it's just, and it feels like nobody's really talking about it outside of the community. And so, particularly communities of color, and that sucks. It doesn't feel like we're supported all that much. And it's a lot of performance and lip service, right? And it's been a really big shift from 2020 when everybody was gung-ho and willing to help and willing to do the work to now when everybody's disappeared, now that outside opened back up,
BLM and name only.
Right. And so Black people stopped mattering when outside opened back up. It's very interesting. And nothing's really changed. So yeah, I think those things can be disheartening. But I guess to not end on a sad note, past couple of weekends I've got to be with my friends. I've sang karaoke, I've gone to the farmers market, I've had sister circles, I've done all that sort of stuff, and it's been able to feed